Hello, I'm Claire Smith, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to review 6 Mancera perfumes that I've been very generously sent by Ange from 50 Cents UK. She sent me these really pretty perfume vials with 6 of her massive collection of Mancera perfumes in. If you haven't checked out Ange's channel, please go check it out because she does have an awful lot of Mancera perfumes. So if you want to hear more about them, you should probably go and watch Ange's videos. So I'm just going to go through each of the 6 that she sent me and tell you what I think of it, and also I will rank them at the end of this video. So I've had a few revelations trying Mancera perfumes the second time around, and I don't know whether it's just the ones that Ange likes or whether it is just all Mancera perfumes, but there definitely seems to be a very musky DNA that's shared between all of these fragrances. And also I think that they are all pretty strong. They all project really well, they all last really well. And I also feel like if you like a natural smelling kind of fragrance, Mancera are probably not for you. So let's start with one that everybody talks about. Let's start with Instant Crush. So this is the notorious Baccarat Rouge similar fragrance, isn't it? This is the one that people do comparison videos about and say that it's really not that close compared with a lot of other dupes. And yeah, I mean, I've never smelt Baccarat Rouge, so I can't comment on that, but I have smelt Opulent Musk, and that's meant to be a very distant dupe of Baccarat Rouge, and I definitely do see the similarity between these two. But I would say that I infinitely prefer Instant Crush to Opulent Musk. It's just a smoother, nicer fragrance. So Instant Crush starts off with quite a fresh but light ginger note, and then the saffron begins to dominate. It really takes over very quickly, the saffron note in this. And then as it dries down on skin, it becomes warm, woody, musky, sweet. It's definitely a very sweet fragrance, this. It reminds me of, in the air, a powdery feeling of Golden Graham cereal, that kind of caramelized sugar smell. It's really quite sweet, this one. But also I think that compared to a lot of Baccarat Rouge dupes, this one is really low on that piney, resinous note. I don't really smell it as much as I smell it in something like Opulent Musk. It's very much dialed back. So yeah, overall I like Instant Crush, but I don't really feel like I would reach for it that often. It's just not a particular style of fragrance that I enjoy, that sugary sweetness. This one just isn't for me, but I do appreciate that it's the best of the dupes that I've tried. So I've tried Dark Cherry and Amber, I've tried Opulent Musk, and I've tried Ariana Grande Cloud. This is definitely the one that I like best out of those 4 fragrances. So the next fragrance I tried was Musky Garden, which I think is one that people don't talk about as much. So this one I found to be really likeable, actually. I really enjoyed this one. It is a massively musk dominant fragrance, so if you don't like musk, stay well away from this one. I would say this is definitely a very clean musk. It's like a Body Shop kind of white musk to me. It's quite familiar. I'm sure there are several other fragrances that smell very similar to this. It seems extremely familiar. It's like I've smelt this before somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where. I'd say this is mostly musk, but there's also a floral and there's also a fruity aspect to this. There's definitely a rose and there's jasmine as well in this. And you definitely can smell those, but they are background. There's also a red berry note in this, and that's what you get initially, but as it dries down more, it becomes peachier. And for someone who struggles with peach a lot in fragrances, I like this one. So overall, I found this quite a nice warm fragrance. It just felt very inviting. It didn't feel like you could offend people with this fragrance. This didn't feel like something that was going to bother other people like Instant Crush might have done. I think this one's definitely more of an office-friendly kind of fragrance. This is something that you could wear for any occasion. It's quite versatile. I wouldn't, you know, people call these kind of fragrances boring sometimes, don't they? But I definitely don't think this fragrance is boring. I think out of my collection, the one that it reminded me of most is actually one that doesn't have musk, which is what I find odd. But it really reminded me of Kenzo World. And I wouldn't say they're similar. I'd just say they have a similar vibe. So this one has a red berry note at the top, and it also has a lot of ambroxan. And I feel like that kind of mix of sort of the artificial and the red berries is definitely something that these 2 fragrances have in common. But yeah, overall they're not that similar. They just have a vibe of each other. Would I buy this? I really like this fragrance, but I do feel like it's not that earth-shattering. But sometimes fragrances don't have to be earth-shattering, do they? They just have to be nice. And yeah, this is a nice, pleasant floral, fruity musk. And it's just very wearable, so I think that's why I like it. So that's Musky Garden. So the next one I tried was Velvet Vanilla, and I think this kind of perfectly describes how this fragrance smells in a way, because it definitely is a very vanilla forward fragrance, but I would say that overall it's more tuberose that's the dominant note here. It's a very creamy, people say bubblegummy, don't they? But I think for me it's more like sherbet. This is something that, I don't know, I have this weird thing with this fragrance that it just makes me sneeze. I don't know what it is. There's something tickling my nose in this fragrance. But yeah, it sort of smells to me like a sherbet, and I think that's why I'm sneezing with this fragrance. I really like this, but I do like tuberose in fragrances sometimes, but I definitely have to be in the mood for that kind of tuberose note. And it really reminded me of Madonna's Truth or Dare, this one, but I would say that Madonna's Truth or Dare is clearly more straight up tuberose, and it just feels creamier and whiter than Velvet Vanilla. So Velvet Vanilla does have other things that you can smell as well as the vanilla and the tuberose. There's definitely a very background, but definitely present blackcurrant note. There is that sort of feeling of the sort of tart sweetness in the background. There's also a little bit of rose in this fragrance, and that does come through, as well as some jasmine. I really like this fragrance. I do think that it's something that could give people a headache. I think all tuberose fragrances are a bit like that. Overall, this just reminded me of cupcakes. It reminded me of 1980s cupcakes, where, you know, you have the vanilla sponge with the sweet icing, no buttercream, and those kind of little triangles that you got on them in jelly triangles covered in sugar. That's what this fragrance reminds me of. It's kind of inexplicable as to why this reminds me of that, because of the other notes in this fragrance, like the tuberose and things. That is really what I think of. But overall, I really like this fragrance, but I just don't think that I would reach for it often enough to justify a purchase. So that's Velvet Vanilla. So the next fragrance I tried was probably the most intriguing and probably the weirdest, I would say, out of the ones that I got from Ange. And this is Choco Violet. So Choco Violet is basically exactly what it says on the tin. It is violet, but there's also a cocoa note in this, or there's something that resembles cocoa. So to me, when I first spray this, I do get the violet, but I more get the smell of Cocoa Pops. So the Cocoa Pops cereal. It's just so super sweet and cocoa-y. And I thought I was mad, but then I was reading other people's reviews on Fragrantica, and a lot of people seem to smell Cocoa Pops. I also smell Nutella in this fragrance later on, so there's definitely like a bit of a nutty feeling to this fragrance. And also later on still, you get wafts. So you get a waft of like the Cocoa Pops kind of smell, and you also get wafts of Parma Violets. It's a really strange feeling, this fragrance. It's got this kind of like almost mustiness as well that hangs over it, which I assume is the musk note in this. And when it mixes with the chocolate and the violet, because the violet kind of gives it a bit of a, you know, a warm floralness as well in the background. When those all mix, it smells like Cocoa Pops that you're smelling that have been left in a bowl, or Cocoa Pops that are on somebody else's breath who's been eating Cocoa Pops. It's like secondhand Cocoa Pops. And to me, this is a fragrance that a teddy bear would wear. It's a very cuddly fragrance. It's something you would wear at home. It's not like a weapon of mass seduction, this one. This is definitely a comforting kind of gourmand smelling fragrance, something that is just a fun thing to wear, basically. I'm not sure I would buy this because I'm not sure how often I would reach for it, but it's definitely a massive curiosity for me, and was hands down the weirdest of the bunch, and that's saying something when you hear the next couple. So yeah, I really like this one, Choco Violet. Really interesting fragrance. Definitely not a safe blind buy though, unless you really love Cocoa Pops. So the next one that I tried was Black to Black, and I would say that this one again was one of the weirder ones. So let me tell you a story. I was going to work on a Saturday. Yeah, I would work on a Saturday. How depressing is that? And I got on the bus, and as the bus was moving around and I was sort of, you know, just not really paying attention basically, I kept getting wafts of something that I felt was a smell of diesel. And I thought, oh, this bus has got something wrong with it. And then I realised it was this fragrance. And I don't know what it is that's making me think of diesel when I smell this fragrance on me. But yeah, it must be something in this fragrance. And I think it's probably the leather and the oud combination with the musk that is making me think of diesel. It's such a weird fragrance, but I really do like it. So this fragrance, as well as the oud, the leather and the musk, also has saffron very dominantly, and also rose. Rose is really the other thing that you smell that just brings it back from the edge of the darkness, basically. But I would say that it's still quite a dark smelling, foreboding kind of rose. So when I say it smells of diesel, it doesn't smell nasty. It smells quite pleasant, but it's just very strong. And I think by diesel, I mean it smells heavy, it smells thick, and it also smells black, basically, this fragrance. It feels like a rainy Sunday. It feels very moody and reflective. I think I would definitely want to smell this on other people as well as myself. I feel like this one would be something I'd want to smell on my husband, maybe. Yeah, I really like this. I don't think this is for everybody. I feel like a lot of people won't like this one, probably, because it just is so heavy. And the leather and the oud and the musk are just really thick. There's no other words for it, just really thick. If you're not into leather and oud, don't even bother with this fragrance because you're not going to like it. And I would say this is definitely one of the stronger fragrances here. This is the one that you can definitely overspray. It can be too much, that can follow you around a room and people are going to smell you before they see you. So that's Black to Black by Mancera. So the final fragrance that I tried was Rose's Vanille, and I would say that this one is a really rosy, vanilla-y musk. It's really not a complex fragrance to me, this one. It's not something that I feel like there's massive depth to. I feel like this one is really how the name describes it, basically. The opening to this is quite fresh, it's quite lemony, and it is quite a bright feeling fragrance, but it's quite vanilla-y, sugary sweet as well in the end of this fragrance. It's sweeter and more vanilla-y than something like Intense Café, which this fragrance really did remind me of. But I would say that if you have one or other of these, you don't need the other one because they are really terribly similar. The only differences really are that I sense oud in Intense Café, which I don't really sense in Rose's Vanille. Also, Intense Café is generally a heavier, very like musky fragrance. It's a very heavy, almost cloying kind of musk fragrance. And also there's clearly a coffee note in that. Which it did take me a long time to appreciate the coffee note because I didn't smell it to begin with. But now that I do smell it, that is the major difference between these two fragrances. I'd say overall, Rose's Vanille is just a lighter, friendlier fragrance and definitely the one that I prefer of the two. So that's Rose's Vanille. So if you're new to Mancera and you want to try one, which would I suggest? Well, I think most people will like Rose's Vanille, and I think most people will like Musky Garden. I can't see those two being controversial on the scale of the others. I think they're the most likeable of the six that I've tried here. So how would I rank these fragrances? Well, my ranking is going to be heavily influenced by my preferences in fragrance generally, and also by my experiences with other fragrances in my collection, which ones don't remind me or do remind me of fragrances in my collection. So I'm always looking for something a little bit different, and I would say actually out of these fragrances, number 6 for me would be Instant Crush. I'm just not into those kind of Baccarat Rouge kind of fragrances. It just doesn't interest me. So that's why that's number 6. Also, I have Opulent Musk, and that's really enough for me in the Baccarat Rouge department. But I would say that Instant Crush was definitely a nicer fragrance than Opulent Musk. So number 5 for me was probably Rose's Vanille, just because I have Intense Café already, and I don't feel like I need another fragrance that smells extremely similar. But I did really like Rose's Vanille, and out of the two I probably would pick that one over Intense Café. Number 4, I'd probably pick Velvet Vanilla, just because it reminded me so much of Madonna Truth or Dare, and I don't really feel like I need another Tuberose forward fragrance in my collection because I don't really wear Tuberose very often. I'm not often in the mood for Tuberose. So that's why that's number 4. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I feel that I don't need it. So number 3 for me was Choco Violet, just because it's so weird and so different, and I think it's just a curiosity for me. It's something that I don't need in my collection, but it just was so different and so interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think number 2 would probably be Musky Garden. Even though it was quite a safe kind of feeling fragrance, I feel like it was just a really, really pleasant fragrance. It's something you could wear daily. It's something that's versatile. It's something that's just generally nice. And I really like a really strong musk kind of fragrance. And that is one that I just like. It's just a nice, clean musk. And I really like that kind of fruitiness in it. I really like the peach even, dare I say it. Yeah, me liking peach. I don't know what's happening. So yeah, that's why that's number 2. And number 1 would be Black to Black. It just was so striking, and I really like the smell of diesel. It really reminds me of my childhood. I grew up on a farm. My dad always smelled of diesel. And yeah, it just is a really something you could share. I feel like you could definitely share this with your partner, and it'd just be fun to wear. I think it's just a really kind of dark smelling fragrance, and it's really unexpected. I really like that leather and the oud, and the feeling of the darkness and the gloom. I know that sounds odd, but yeah, it's just a really, really striking rose fragrance, and something that I don't have anything similar to in my collection. I just found that interesting. So that's my ranking. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And let me know if you've tried any of these fragrances and what you think of them. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.